And looks like we're good. Okay, go ahead, take it away. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the secret life of the Blackboard Grade Center, which is Julie's amazing name for this Tech Tuesday talk, which I absolutely love because Blackboard Grade Center does have a lot of secrets and it is not necessarily the most user-friendly. However, once you know a couple of them, it is really quite lovely to use and can save you a lot of time. So Julie, myself, and Mowmita are the ones going to be chatting today. And if you haven't met Mowmita, Mowmita is amazing. She's the Blackboard queen. And so she's also here to help us with the content we're presenting in case you have a question that we can't answer. She knows all the ins and outs. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves, or are you happy to go on to the next slide?
Let's go to the next slide.
Cool. So our agenda for today is we're going to talk about where to find the Grade Center. So where actually is it on Blackboard? How we're going to sort of think about including our Blackboard created assignments into the Grade Center, but also how you can manually create columns and add grades yourself. So it doesn't need to necessarily be a Blackboard related item that you grade. You can add additional assignments and include them in the grade book. Then we'll also talk about assigning categories to the material that's presented, and that will help us come up with a weighted total. So if you've ever wondered what is that weighted total and that total button that show up in your Grade Center the first time you ever open your Blackboard Grade Center, that's also what we're going to talk about today. So how is this Tech in 20 going to work? We will find out. But we could literally talk about this for hours. Every time Mowmita gives one of these presentations, we end up going down really great rabbit holes where we chat about how to do things and how to come up with creative outcomes. So we could talk for hours. We don't have hours, so let's try to avoid that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take questions at the end. We're not going to take them as we go. And we're going to present everything in a slide-like format because if you were around yesterday trying to access Blackboard, it was down. And so we originally thought, let's show everyone what we're going to do. But we thought that would be a little bit iffy if we couldn't access it. So we're going to talk about it in a slide format, and then we're going to go through and answer questions using an example Grade Center. So we'll spend up until the top of the hour reviewing all those things in detail. And so now Julie is going to take it away and start talking about some of the fun things that we want to present.
Great. So we came up with this list, and these are basically, if you know these 5 things, you can do a lot of grading and you will make your grading life so much easier. So I have the honor to start at the very beginning, and this is where is the Grade Center. And feel free to open your Blackboard if it's up and running and go to one of your courses and follow along as we go. So the Grade Center is under your course management panel. You see the menu there, Grade Center. And then when you click on Full Grade Center, you basically see what you see on the right side. And that is basically an Excel sheet. And that's good to know because at the end of the semester, or really at any time you want, you can go to Work Offline and just download it, and it will be a spreadsheet. There you go. Thank you, Sarah. And so the Full Grade Center is really everything. And so that can, if you assign a lot of things, and I think we all assign a lot of things, become very overwhelming. And so we really should go over some ways in which you can make this more manageable for yourself. So let's go to the next slide. And this is the thing that I maybe love the most about the Grade Center on Blackboard, and that is that a lot of things that you create within Blackboard can become automatically grade columns. And so you see the list there of all the kind of items that in Blackboard can become included in the Grade Center. So assignments and surveys and tests and so on. And I put 2 screen shots of an assignment, and there you see, I think the default is that it is actually included in the Grade Center. And then you see a screenshot from the discussion board where you actually have to click on Grade Discussion Forum for it to be included. And that is really great for many reasons. The next we will see in the next slide. And that is that these items end up in your needs grading menu. And so we looked at the full Grade Center in the course management panel before, but on top of that, you see needs grading. And I consider this basically your customizable grading to-do list. So you open Blackboard, you go to needs grading, and at this point of the semester, you see a bunch of items there. And the thing I like about it is that it is customizable. So you see there on the top right, there's a filter. And so you can say, today I'm going to grade all the tests, or today I'm only going to grade week 2 test. Or today, Bruce told me that he was sick the last week and I have to, I gave him an extension and I'm going to grade all the missed work of just the user, Bruce, okay? So you can really filter these and just say, okay, now I'm just going to focus on these ones. And so that's really, really nice. It kind of lets you sort your grading and just access everything you have on your grading to-do list. And in the next slide, I give you a couple of options. There are other ways to start grading. I really like the needs grading. I think I like the filters and everything. But you can also just go to your full Grade Center, everything with a yellow circle with a white exclamation mark that indicates that it needs grading, and then you click and you get to the assignment. And for instance, on the discussion board, there is also the option to immediately within the discussion board page grade there and then, okay? But needs grading, that is basically your grading to-do list. All right, so one more thing that I want to share with you, next slide, please, thank you, is the manually created grade column, okay? So you're saying, oh yeah, that's great for assignments and for the discussion board and tests, but I have you told me about Padlet and I want to create a Padlet, and where does that go? Or I grade participation or a presentation. And so that for that reason, you have the manually created grade column. So for this one, you have to go to your full Grade Center, and it's a bit of a busy slide, but everything is there. So you will first go to your Grade Center. You will create a column, right? And then you get this long page that was too long for a slide, where you have a couple of options. So you have to give it a name, and you have to decide if it will be a letter grade or a score. And then you have the option to assign a category. Well, we hear more about categories in a bit from Sarah. You have to assign some points. You can add a rubric if you want. And then again, number 8, yes, you want to include this in the Grade Center, because otherwise it's not going to be part of your grade book. And then 9, I want to talk a little bit about that 9. That is the visibility. Are you going to show this column to students, yes or no? And sometimes, I think most of the time, the default is yes. And my default is no, okay? Because I don't grade everything at the same time. I don't want students to see their grades all at the same time. Sometimes I decide, oh, I've been really too harsh on this question. I want to go back. So I always, if I think about it, I click here, no. But if I forgot about this, then on the next slide, I'll show you some ways to hide grade columns later. So what you see here is some snapshots from the Grade Center. And so this is basically what you get when you click on the arrow next to a column title, all right? And so my favorite function maybe is hide from students on off, okay? And so this is an auto, if you had accidentally clicked yes before, hadn't noticed, and you say, oh, no, these grades are not ready, that's where you go. So you hide from students, you click that, and once you see next to the title, that circle with a red line, then you know they can't see it. Now, if you don't like in the full grade center that there are literally 50 columns and you say, this one is not important, then you can hide it from the instructor view. And this is again in the same panel, okay? Now we do change our minds, okay? So what, next slide, please. What if you do want to show it, okay? So for the students, you basically do what we did before. So you click again and it will be the other option. So again, like this is Mowmita's tip. This is just like you want to release all the grades at one time. Right, and then the next slide will show you how this works for the instructors, okay? Because the column is gone, you can't click on it anymore in the full grade center. So you want to go to maybe my favorite page of the grade center, if that's possible. You go to manage and column organization, and there you can do a lot of great things. It lets you customize things, and it also lets you click several boxes at the same time, which Blackboard doesn't let you do often, so do take advantage. And so if you say, okay, I do want to see these columns in my full grade center, then you just select these, the steps are there, and you just make them visible, okay? So these were a couple of tricks. The main one I would say is how to hide it from the students, okay? So with that, I will pass it on to Sarah, who will talk about categories.
Thanks, Julie. So Julie's now given us a lovely overview about how we do some of the basics, and she's alluded to this idea of creating categories. And categories are also under this kind of this favorite tab of Julie's, under this manage tab, you'll see that you'll have the option of categories. And Blackboard has a couple of categories that are already kind of automatically created. Things like tests, things like discussion boards, but you can actually create your own. And there's a lot of benefits for why you might create categories. It allows you to organize your grade book, and we'll talk about how that then plays into helping calculate weighted totals, which is really, really useful for calculating final grades. So when you're creating categories, you can think of this in terms of like, okay, I've got discussion posts that my students need to submit. So I want to lump all of those assignments that are on the discussion board into a category and call it discussion boards. And so I can create one automatically, but I can also add one by clicking manage, heading down into categories. This is all in your full grade center. And you'll have the option up top to click create a new category. And then you can add a name for it, you can add a description, and all you need to do is hit submit. So it's very, very simple. The thing is that once you've created the category, you haven't yet told it what needs to go into that category. You still need to go through that process. So this is the other tab that Julie was mentioning that she loves so much. It's under manage as well, and it's called column organization. And the reason why it's so nice is the fact that you have this area where you can select multiple things. And as Julie said, this is not something that Blackboard lets you do often. So that means that all your assignments that you have created, even if they're not yet organized into a category, will display here. And you can select as many or as few as you want. You can click the Change Category To button, and then all of the categories that you've created will appear. And so you can already see on this slide that these assignments have already been allocated a category. See, it says test here, and up top it says assignments. So we know that homeworks 1 through 5 are in the assignments, and quiz 1 through 6 are in the test. So why go ahead and do this? One, it's nice to organize your grade book, but it helps for weighted totals. So what are weighted totals? I'm sure we've all logged onto our course site the first time we've ever seen it, or you've moved over a new course site and then or like content, and then you see that there are doubles of all of these and you're like, oh my gosh, I just want these things to go away. I haven't added anything to my grade book yet. Why are they here? This is a really convenient tool if you know how to use it. It easily allows you to calculate your final grades, especially if you use percentages to allocate your points for your students. So you can weight by percent using categories that you've created. You can use individual assessments. So if you have a large project or a midterm, it doesn't necessarily need to be in a category. It could actually just be its own assignment, and you weight that a certain percentage. And like I said, the only thing that you need to do before you head into your weighted total is, if you are going to use categories, you need to create them before coming here, because otherwise they won't show up. So when you where do you find weighted totals and how do you organize this? Well, if you've found the weighted total area, essentially you'll click down and you'll hit it column, edit column information. And this will lead you to a next slide where you can allocate the percentage points and the weights for all of those assignments. And you can move in categories and move out categories. I'll show you what that looks like on the next slide. But a couple things to consider before you do this. When you are weighting things, be aware that the totals do not include null grades. So if a student has not submitted an assignment yet, or there's a little dash mark there, you need to make sure that you add in a 0, because otherwise it will take it out of the total points that that student has allocated, and it won't include the things that have the little dash mark. So it could overinflate or underinflate essentially. And that means that when you're displaying the weighted total to your students, you should be careful and make sure that they are actually up to date. So in general, I like to use Julie's tip of hiding this from my students until I'm doubly sure that this is actually accurate and reflective of their grade. And you could make this available, for example, at midterms for a couple of weeks, just to show them where they are in terms of the semester, and then open it up again at finals time when you're actually ready to display your final grades. If you're going to display the weighted total, don't display the total to your students. That's just because the total is out of the total points, and so it's going to give them a different score. So if you are using the weighted total, stick with that. If you're going to use the total, stick with that. Don't display both, because you will probably get a million emails from students wondering which one is actually my grade and can I just have the higher one. And just a fun fact, if anybody's curious and we want to review this later, you can color code. So
I think we have lost Sarah.
Yeah, she seems to have frozen.
Yeah.
I was figuring out if it was just her or all of us or me, but while she gets back unfrozen, and we do talk about frozen columns in later. Anyway, I'll just quickly take over. So basically, this is the slide that tells you what goes in the weighted total. And Mowmita, please jump in if I'm saying anything. Oops, we also lost our
Slides.
our slides. Just 1 second. Let me get these back up. All right, let me just.
I'm sure you have experienced tech difficulties over the last couple of weeks. Everything that we use has been acting up. Have you noticed? Blackboard, up and down. Zoom, up and down. VoiceThread, anything and everything that we have used goes like this. And so I guess we just have to roll with the punches. They're tired? Yeah, maybe. I think we're just all on it.
All right, so let me go to the right slide. I know everything will let us down. Let's see. This was our last one. By the way, by the time I have this up and running, Sarah will be back. Okay, but Mo will correct me if I'm saying anything incorrectly here, but I'm a big fan of the weighted totals. Basically you see, this is all where the magic happens. So you see select columns, and I would select a column if you just have one assignment. Okay, just like final paper. If you,
Julie,
for everything else.
where's your slide?
Oh.
I think you were on slide 15 before Sarah froze.
Yeah.
Right now it's showing the first one.
Oh, I see slide 16. All right. Let me just stop sharing and see what's going on. Okay. All right, I was just getting into the weighted totals. So do you see slide?
Yes, it's good now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, see, so much can go wrong. Join us later this semester for our talk on teaching fails. All right, so first, so as I was saying, and I'll go with my cursor, if you just have one assignment, like a final exam, right? Then you want to probably select a column here. But you really want to use those categories, because with the categories, you can do a lot of extra things. So your students have 10 tests, and they have 5 short quizzes. And they have something to write every week, right? And so you have assigned that a category, and then you just select your category and you assign a percentage, because on all our syllabi we have that breakdown in percentage. And I just want to point out, you can weigh your columns equally, and that is like every homework counts for 10 points. I just going to click equally. But maybe you are like me, and I have an assignment that sometimes it's 15 points and then it's 5 points. And so proportionally is what you want to do then. Then again, like if you have some rules, like I will drop your 2 lowest grades. This is all where you can do that. I cannot believe that my first year, I was just manually dropping grades. All there in Blackboard, all right? So this is the weighted total, and ideally you have this set up, at the beginning of the semester, but you don't have to, because you can do it anytime, and I have often done it like right when I start to calculate my final grades. I think Sarah is back. All right, hello, Sarah.
I am back, but I'm on my cell phone because apparently my Zoom function does not want to work on my computer. I have no idea why. So if I'm like really up close on the camera, it's because I'm trying to squint and read my slides. So apologize for the full frontal face close-up.
So I just went over slide 16. Mowmita, did I leave anything important out? No, I think she says no.
No, you did not.
Okay. All right. So so since I didn't memorize Sarah's slide, here we see again the proportionally and equally. I'll pass it on back to you, Sarah.
Perfect.
But I'm doing the slides. All right.
Perfect. I'm trying to get in on my computer, which seems to have just worked. So I'm going to turn you guys off on this one.
Oh, the joy of working online. Okay, so as Julie was probably already telling you, you have this lovely opportunity to put in these percentage points for all of your assignments. So if your homework constitutes 20% of your grade, you can put that in. And if you have multiple assignments within here, as Julie was highlighting, you can mark them to be weighted proportionally or equally, meaning that depending on how many points you assign for them, it potentially doesn't matter if you want them to all be weighted the same in a sense. So if you forget that homework 1 is worth 5 points and everything else is worth 10, that's okay as long as you weight them equally. If you actually want that to be represented in the grade with that difference, then you want to mark them as graded proportionally. You also have the option here to drop assignments. So we were talking about this the other day, Many people still go through their grade books and pick which assignment to drop. This is a lifesaver. You can pick that they can drop their lowest score and you don't have to do anything about it. So this is a super helpful thing to use. Just note that when you do this, it needs to come from a category, because otherwise if you do this from an individual assignment, there's only one thing being graded there. You can't necessarily drop a low score. So this needs to stem from a category. And here's just a plug for Mowmita. So Mowmita has a workshop on Blackboard Grade Center on Friday at 10 a.m. And we will send around the link to these slides so that you have all the content in the slides and all the helpful links as well. But you can use this to register for it. And there are multiple other workshops that are upcoming. So check them out in case you need extra tips. And Mowmita actually also has Google Slides presentations that go into more of a step-by-step on all of these materials. And she actually also has a recorded training on the Grade Center. So even if you can't go on Friday, but you still want to get involved, I highly recommend also watching her pre-recorded training on the Grade Center. And here are some extras. I'll let Julie start maybe chatting about some of them, but Smart Views is amazing if anybody's used it. It essentially is a lovely way to look at your grade book and to make it so that when you are looking at that full grade center column, you'll notice that it says full grade center needs grading, and then underneath, anything that you have sort of categories for potentially can be used to highlight there as well. So you can add quizzes, and then all of your quizzes will show up there so you don't get overwhelmed with the entire grade center.
And a few shout outs to some other fun extras, well, fun. So the hide other rows, I discovered this only recently, but so a student would come for advising and they wanted, so the students don't see the grade center. I don't know if you actually were, I thought for years that they saw it the same way I did, but they just have my grades. And maybe sometimes you, during advising, you just really want to show them all in the grade center the way you have it. And you can actually hide all the other rows, or you can even just look at a couple of students. So there's a how-to on how to do that. Then the color codes, this can be helpful. I have put this on in my language class now, just to see if somebody gets below a certain grade, it gets marked in a certain color. You can even turn it off and on your grade center once you've set that up. So another link to some instructions there. And then maybe there is a column you don't want to move. We talked about freezing before. That can be helpful if you just want something not to move while you scroll, because again, the full grade center can become quite crowded. And so there's a quick link on how to do that. So I think that's what we have for the presentation part. So we can stop recording, and we're ready to take all your questions.